Good evening to you once again, or it might be morning. I don't know what time you're watching this, but whatever it is, welcome to this beautiful day and welcome to
Tough Questions,
Real Answers. And I am Pastor Robert Lockhart, and this is
Minister Rochelle Lockhart.
okay. And for those of you, just Robert and Rochelle, and that's what we're going to be today. As we just and she usually tells us what we're going to talk about. So what we're talking about today?
We're going to talk about marriage.
Oh, we're going to talk about marriage. Okay. Now, how long have we been married?
That's interesting. We're sitting right in
Yes,
front of
our
wedding picture.
picture's right in the back of us. So how long ago is that wedding picture now? How long is it?
25 years.
25 years, and we have 3 beautiful sons, and they're doing great. 18, 20,
18, 21, and 20.
and 20. 18, 21, and 20. I don't think so. I think Raul's 22. But anyhow, he'll be 22 this year. So he's 22 this month, so he'll be there. But God has been good to us, and so we're going to talk about marriage, and we have a great marriage. I mean,
Yes, we do.
this is my best friend in the whole world, and has been my best friend for over 30 to 33 years, because we
Yes.
dated for about 7 or 8 years, and always been great friends. And I always say it's nothing better than marrying your best friend. And so we've been talking about marriage. So how do we want to talk about it?
We know that a great marriage doesn't just happen.
Nope, great marriages don't just happen by accident. They're just like mixing a cake. There are ingredients that go into it.
And we've had many, many mountains and many, many valleys. And we've
Yes.
had some deserts as well.
Yes.
I usually say to Robert, the rich for richer, for poorer. We've done the poorer. Now it's time to do the richer.
Okay.
For better, for worse. We've done the worst, and so now I think we're in the better. So,
Yes, yes.
But
yes.
it's getting better, and it has gotten so much better, and we're grateful to that. So, what makes a good marriage?
What makes a great marriage? Well, the place where I'll start with is the very ingredients. Just like baking a cake, you have those basic ingredients, and then you have the other stuff you put along with it to spruce it up and to pretty it up. But you can't get away from the basic ingredients. And the basic ingredients of a great marriage, we find it right there when people get married. Those marriage covenants and vows that are made, not the ones people make up themselves, but the ones that are there that we talk about, the traditional ones. They are the basic foundational ingredients that make a great marriage. First of all, it starts off with love. Then secondly, there is commitment to fidelity, forsaking all others, where that person is your only one and remains your number one for the rest of your life. That ingredient has to be there. Then there is that mutual commitment to cherish one another, and that's where you treat each other as precious, or always see each other as precious. And then there's that mutual submission. I call it mutual cooperation, where you cooperate with one another. And then, of course, this is the most important part of it, before God and before these witnesses. But the key is you want to make sure that God is involved in that process. And so the basic ingredients for a great marriage is fidelity, love, commitment, cooperation, and cherishing one another, where you value each other always. And then there's some other stuff that you have to add that's very important to make the marriage great. But that's the foundational stuff that you have to have there.
One thing that's happening in our world today, I think people are confused about what love is and what lust is. And so as we see on television, and people are now, after a week and 2 weeks and 3 months and 5 months and 6 months, they're so much in love. And so what happens is, after they get married, then they realize they don't really know the person. So how important is knowing the person before you decide to make that final commitment to marriage?
Yeah, you definitely, and that's why we have something that's called, we don't use the word so much today, in American culture they say dating, and I guess in our culture we've adopted that also, but in years gone past they used to say courting, and that's what dating is. But the right word is courting, and the word courting is a judicial word. It's like when you go to court, and what you're doing is you're investigating the situation. You're spending time together so you can investigate each other, so you can come to a final judgment. That's what they do in court, right?
Yes.
They look at the facts, they study the evidence, and then they're able to make the right judgment. So the key is even though you might love somebody initially, what we call falling in love, and that may be instantaneous, but you can't really make a commitment of love to someone that you don't really know. Or you might find that I've committed to the wrong person. So what you want to do, you need to have a time of courting. Today they call it dating or we're going, whatever terms you use, but the original foundation word is courting, and it's where you want to take time to investigate that person, get to know that person, to see if this is the person that I want to give my love to for the rest of my life. And that takes a little bit of time, and so you need to take time. You know, there's an old song that one says, you got to get to know them. And so the key is you want to get to know that person to see that you can go together, because there, of course, there are some ingredients that needs to be in there for a long-time relationship. You know, short relationships doesn't take much, but a lifetime relationship, there's some other ingredients that need to be in there for a lifetime relationship that's going to endure all the ups and downs and different seasons of life.
What's happening now in our world today is people are starting marriage at the wrong end. So they're starting with the sleeping together, the living together, and then they decide, okay, I'm going to marry this person, and then after a while they find out, I don't really know this person, but you're starting the relationship at the wrong end. So you're starting the relationship where the relationship should end, instead of starting the relationship where it should begin.
We're sort of like, you know, and I say what happens is probably not everybody, but it's becoming cultural because, of course, the impact that media, television, magazines, I guess celebrities have on our culture, which I call a moral or social experiment. And the social experiment today is let's throw all the traditional morals aside, where there was a process to marriage. The process was first courting, then engagement, then marriage, then sex, then children. And what has happened in our modern culture with this social experimentation of throwing all morals and which of course was Christian based, let's throw them all aside, and we're not going to pay attention to any of the steps. There aren't going to be any steps. And so what persons do is they meet somebody, they say they like them, they're physically attracted to them, and so they like someone, they become sexually active at the very beginning, and then after that, then they're trying to get to know the person. Then after they get to know the person, and they may take a couple years to do that, then they decide to get married, and then when things don't work out, then they say, oh, I don't think I ever really loved this person, I didn't really know them, they're not the type of person I thought that they were, but you've already been intimate with this person, you may have already had children together and had a life together, only to discover this is not the person that I want to marry, or the person that I really love, or the person I spend my time with. But you've already taken all of these previous steps when you really should have left that for after you know that this is the person you want to commit yourself to, and in a covenant relationship for the rest of your life, so that when you do become intimate and you do have children, that those children have a mother and father that's committed to each other for the rest of their lives in a loving relationship that actually makes for a better world for both the man, the woman, and the children. So I want to say that is a better way to go, and it's not old-fashioned, it's actually the best approach to take. It's simply putting things in their proper perspective. You don't want to put the cart before the horse, you want to keep the horse in the front and the cart behind, and then the pulling is better.
Very good. And then also, I find that a lot of people are getting married for the wrong reasons. I know when we were growing up, when my mom told me stories, you know, she always wanted to get married. She wanted to have children. And she said she never wanted to have children outside of marriage because she saw the effect of that on children and on the family.
Yeah.
But she was devoted to her marriage and to her children. And so right now, we've lost that. So how do we get the husband and the wife to be more devoted to their marriage and to the children?
Well, the key is, I still think there's a lot of great marriages around, so I still think it is present. But I think what happens today is, in the past, that was predominantly promoted today, that isn't what is promoted, but it is still there. There's still a lot of couples that understand how marriage should work, that are committed to one another. And the key is, but that isn't what you see on television. That isn't what you see in the media. That isn't what you see in the magazines. That isn't what you see in the videos. But what I want to say to persons that even though that's not what's promoted in our, in the realms of entertainment and recreation, like it probably was 50 or 60 years ago, I want to say it's still the best way to go. And the people who go that way have better studies show that they have a happier life, and children are happier, people are happier, because it's first of all, it's the God's way, and it is the best way, and we're wired up for that way. A lot of what is being promoted today is we're not wired for that. We're not wired for infidelity. We're not wired for a multiplicity of relationships. We're not wired for being married 3 and 4 times. We're not wired for getting together and breaking up and heartbreaks. We're wired for long-term lasting relationships, but certain ingredients have to go in there. And I think one of the things people have to realize is that when you're connecting with someone for a long time relationship, such as marriage, you have to have the same values. You have to value the same things, and marriage is just like building a home. You have to put in the foundation. You have to build other things, and it takes effort and time and focus.
Very good. It's interesting to say that, because a lot of times when people get married, I know women have the tendency to believe that when they're marrying a particular person, they're going to change that person. And so they are going with the individual or seeing the person, and they're noticing some things, but for some reason they think it's going to change if they marry the person. How do we get women to understand that marrying a man, if he is undisciplined sexually, if he is a person that likes the party scene, the club scene, the bar scene, the hanging out scene, that marrying him is not going to change that? How do we help women to understand that? Seeing that you're a man, can you help women understand the things?
Well, I think we're going to have to put that in our segment number 2, because our time is running out, and we'll talk about it from the women's side and the male side, because in the studies that I've seen now, men and women are almost equally becoming unfaithful. There was a time when the majority of unfaithfulness in marriages were men, but now we're seeing in our world today that it's almost equal now. Just as much women are being unfaithful to their husbands as men are to their wives. So we'll talk about it from the women's side and from the men's side, because it does flow from 2 different perspectives. And sometimes women feel that they can change men, and then to discover that they cannot, and that's why you have to share the same values. In most cases, men will not change certain values. They usually are who they are, but we can talk about that. Sometimes women overestimate how much they can change a guy. And the thing is, men have a tendency to in an early relationship, they'll pretend, they'll put on for a period of time, but eventually they go back to their true selves, who they really are. But we'll have to talk about that in our next segment, because when you're talking about marriage, there's so much things to talk about. But in part 2, we're going to talk about marrying someone and thinking that you can change them. And if you do, it means because originally you don't like who they are anyhow, but you're hoping that you can change them into the person that you want them to be. Never a good way to go, because I've come to find that only God can really change people. And the only way is when people make the decision themselves to change. So we'll talk about that in part 2.
Wow,
as we continue
our
time is up. Because these are some tough questions, but real answers.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Tough questions,
real answers.
God bless you.
Have a great evening.